The rain. It wasn't just rain, it was the sky's rage. The wind howled through the alleys like a wounded animal, and sheets of water slammed against the precinct's glass like fists. Tonight, the world outside was gone, replaced by darkness and a snarling flood. And then I saw him. A shadow materialized in the flashing lights of a patrol car. A German shepherd, old. His wet fur was plastered to a body of skin and bone. One eye was a milky, scarred-over white. But the other one, it burned with a fierce intensity. He stood just outside the door, motionless in the storm. No bark, no whine. Clamped in his jaws was a small, tattered piece of fabric. As he lifted his head, the light caught it, and I saw. It was a cat's collar, ragged and filthy. He wasn't here for shelter. That single eye drilled into mine, a silent plea, more urgent than any cry for help I had ever heard. He was here to report a crime, and time was running out. I threw the door open, a blast of frantic wind and rain hitting me in the face. "Come on, old-timer, get inside." But he didn't move. He only backed away, his one good eye holding mine with an urgency colder than the storm itself. He didn't want shelter, he wanted me. He lowered his head, gently placing the tattered collar at my feet. Evidence, a plea. Then he looked up and let out a single bark, short, sharp. It wasn't a plea, it was a command. He turned and limped into the night. He looked back just once. That look said it all. "Follow me, now." I grabbed my slicker, yelling over my shoulder to my partner. I'm on something, following a dog, headed toward Elm Street. The water was already ankle-deep, frigid. The old dog, despite his frail body, pushed forward. His gait was a painful struggle, but he moved with an iron purpose, without hesitation. He navigated the flooded alleys, ignoring the snarling currents at his paws. He knew exactly where he was going. Finally, he stopped. Stock still before an iron sewer grate. Water was churning down into it, forming a small, vicious whirlpool. He scraped his paws against the metal, a desperate whine tearing from his throat. It wasn't the sound of physical pain, it was the agony of a rescuer running out of time. And then, beneath the roar of the storm, I heard it. A faint, nearly buried meow. I knelt, trying to lift the grate, but it was too heavy. Damn it. Just then, a pair of headlights sliced through the rain behind me. The squeal of tires on wet asphalt. It was Dave, my partner. He jumped out of his cruiser. "What is it?" Dave yelled. I pointed at the grate. "Down here! Something's alive! Pop the trunk! Get the crowbar!" Dave didn't ask questions. He ran to his car, popped the trunk, and tossed me a steel crowbar. We heaved together, straining. With a screech of tortured metal, the grate gave way. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it into the darkness. My heart stopped. Below, in the rising, foul-smelling black water, was a narrow concrete ledge. Huddled on it was a mother cat, one of her legs bent at a mangled angle. She was using her own body to shield a litter of newborn kittens, tiny, shivering creatures who were barely clinging to life. The water was inches from them. One more surge, and they would all be swept away. They were staring death in the face, and this one-eyed old dog was their only hope. "Hurry!" I yelled over the rain. "The water's rising every second!" Dave tossed me a small rescue carrier and a coil of heavy rope. "I'm going down. You hold the line." The old dog paced restlessly on the pavement, circling the open sewer, whining. His one eye never left the feline family. He was a general overseeing his own life or death operation. I slid down. The water was instantly waist-deep, frigid and foul. The stench hit me full in the face. The mother cat, seeing me, let out a wild, terrified hiss. Her back arched, claws extended, ready to fight to the death for her young. Her eyes were two desperate green flames. She didn't understand we were trying to help. She only saw a giant invader. "Shh, easy, easy now," I whispered, holding my hand out slowly. From the street above, the old dog let out a sudden bark. It was deep, hoarse and full of authority. Not a bark of aggression, it was a quiet command, an assurance. Incredibly, the mother cat stopped hissing. She glanced up at the dog, then back at me. The panic in her eyes was still there, but the ferocity had softened. It was as if she trusted her four-legged guardian more than the strange giant in front of her. I seized the moment, gently scooping up the kittens one by one. They were too weak to resist, just tiny, shivering bundles of wet fur. I placed them in the carrier. 1, 2, 3, 4. I had just placed the last one inside and was reaching for the mother when a deep roar echoed from further down the tunnel. It wasn't thunder. This was closer, deeper. A water main somewhere up the line had burst. "Dave," I screamed, "we have a problem." Water, a wall of brown filth. It roared toward us like a monster. It hit me like a truck. Its power ripped me from my footing. I slammed into the concrete wall, the safety line snapping taut, digging into my waist. The carrier with the kittens was torn from my grasp. No! I watched in horror as the carrier was swept away, tumbling in the dark, violent current. It was over. We had failed. But then, a black shape plunged into the water. The old dog had jumped into the flood, without a moment's hesitation. His ancient body disappeared beneath the murky surge, then surfaced, swimming against the current with impossible strength. His single eye burned with a will of iron. He saw the carrier. He lunged. His jaws clamped down on the handle. He was fighting, alone against the flood. He was pulling the carrier toward me, muscles bunching under his soaked fur. And then I heard it. A sickening crack of metal and bone. The current had slammed him into a heap of rusted rebar at the bottom of the sewer. He let out a piercing shriek of agony, a sound that froze my blood. His back leg was pinned, trapped between two steel bars. Blood began to cloud the murky water, but his jaw never loosened its grip on the carrier. Through the body-shattering pain, he held on. He was sacrificing himself. "Dave, get down here! Help me!" Dave slid down immediately. The scene was chaos. The water was still roaring. The mother cat was clinging desperately to the ledge. The old dog was trapped, whimpering, but still holding the carrier. "Take the carrier!" I yelled. Dave grabbed it, freeing the dog's jaw. I dove into the cold, opaque water. I couldn't see anything. I had to feel my way. Sharp, rusted metal. I found the trapped leg. It was wedged tight. "I need you!" I surfaced, gasping for air. "We have to bend it! On 3!" We both grabbed the steel bar. The current fought us. 1, 2, 3! We pulled with everything we had. With a horrifying crunch of bone and metal, the leg came free. The dog yelped once more, then went limp. We hauled them all to the surface, one by one, the kittens safe, the mother cat terrified, and finally, our hero. He lay motionless on the wet pavement, one back leg twisted at an unnatural angle, blood still pulsing from the wound. The cold rain washed away the blood, but it couldn't wash away the act of impossible bravery I had just witnessed. We turned the precinct break room into a makeshift field hospital. The smell of burnt coffee mingled with wet dog and the sharp sting of antiseptic. Outside, the storm still raged, but in this room, a tense silence had fallen. A volunteer vet, Dr. Eris, had arrived, her eyes tired but her hands steady. First, the cats. The kittens, now dry and wrapped in hand towels, were suckling from a tiny bottle. The mother, whom we'd named Stormy, lay quietly on a heating pad, her broken leg carefully splinted. She whimpered softly in pain, but her green eyes weren't focused on her own injury. They were fixed on the still form on the metal table in the center of the room. That was Rex, their hero. His condition was worse than I thought. Each breath was a shallow, ragged effort. The blanket couldn't hide the tremors that racked his body. Dr. Eris shook her head, her lips a thin line. "He's old, he's lost too much blood, and the hypothermic shock. I'm not sure, son. His heart is just too weak." She began her work, the snip of scissors as she carefully shaved the fur around the horrific wound. That's when she stopped. "Wait a minute," she whispered. "There's something here." Beneath the weathered skin was a tiny hard object, a microchip. Dave ran to get the scanner. A beep echoed in the quiet room, and then the information appeared on the screen, stark and clear. The air left the room. Name: Rex. Status: retired. Unit: K9, Central Precinct. Owner: Miller Robert. It felt like a punch to the gut. Miller. Sergeant Miller had died of a heart attack 3 years ago. A legend in the department. A good man. And Rex. Rex had been his partner. He wasn't a stray. He was a former police officer. An old soldier left alone after his commander had fallen. He'd spent his last days doing the only thing he knew how to do, to patrol and protect. Tonight, he had been on one last patrol. As Dr. Aris began stitching the wound, Rex let out a low moan. His one good eye fluttered open, cloudy with pain, but it found mine. There was no fear in that gaze, only the endless exhaustion of a soldier who had fought for too long. Just then, something miraculous happened. Stormy, despite her splinted leg, gently stood up. She limped from her box, each step a pained effort. Dave moved to stop her, but I shook my head. Let her go. She walked directly to the metal table. No hiss, no fear. She gracefully hopped onto a nearby chair, and from there onto the table right beside Rex. We all held our breath. She slowly lowered her head. She gently nudged her head against Rex's shoulder, an impossibly tender gesture. Then she leaned down further and began to lick. Not the wound, but the clean white gauze beside it. Her tongue was small and rough, a clumsy but sacred caress. It wasn't the act of an animal, it was an act of gratitude. A silent conversation between two souls who had faced death together in the darkness. I heard Dave sniffle beside me. I had to turn away, to swallow the lump forming in my throat. Under the fluorescent lights of a police station break room, in the middle of the storm of the century, I had just witnessed the purest act of thanksgiving I had ever seen. And I just knew, this old hero wasn't going to die tonight. Love, in the form of a broken mother cat, wouldn't let him go. Rex lived. His courageous heart had refused to stop beating, and I adopted him. There was no way I was letting a hero like that live his final days anywhere but a warm home. Stormy and her kittens found their forever home with one of my colleagues. It's been 3 months now. The storm is just a distant memory. Sometimes I take Rex to visit his little family, and the sight every time astounds me. The battle-scarred canine, with a warrior's scar over one eye and a proud limp, lies sprawled on the carpet. All around him, 4 energetic kittens play, climbing his back as if he were a gentle, patient mountain. And Stormy, the mother, will be curled up beside him, occasionally nuzzling her head against his fur. They became a strange, beautiful family, bound together not by blood, but by a storm and an extraordinary act of valor. I sometimes sit here, in the quiet of my home, and watch Rex sleep by the fire. I think about that night. I think about an old soldier who never abandoned his post, even when the world had forgotten him. He taught me a lesson that night, in the roar of the storm and the cold of the flood. Courage has no retirement age, and kindness needs no language. It doesn't need a uniform or a badge to be a hero. All it needs is a heart willing to fight for a life smaller than its own. A heart that keeps beating for duty, even when it's been bled dry. He had found that family of cats, but I think, in a way, they had saved him. They gave him one last mission, one last reason to fight. And now he could finally rest. An old soldier, finally home.